Hey, so it's Noah. I had to tinker with my mic settings a little bit. I just came in from a hot summer day where it's really humid, so I look sweaty and I'm drinking a beer on camera. So I'm gonna do the best I can. So I'm performing the mid-year book freakout tag, and I have the prompts on the left side of my screen. This is the second time I recorded this because I was in the middle of recording this like in the first take, and I accidentally stepped on the cable to my monitor. So I unplugged the monitor and my webcam stopped working. So that's fun. Um, so I'm just gonna jump right in. I'll probably in editing put the questions like up here or somewhere around here. Um, Number one, best book you've read so far. So the best book I've probably read so far is actually this book called Arkansas Travelers, which is a collection of journals from explorations or expeditions and records of geography from the Missouri and Arkansas regions from the years 1804 to 1834. It's by Andrew J. Milson. I don't actually own the book. It was a library copy that I checked out, so I'm gonna probably splash the cover around here somewhere. But yeah, it's exactly what it sounds like. It takes four travelers, with the first journey starting in 1804, and the last one starts in 1834, and it's just accounts of the geography of Arkansas, Missouri, the how the rivers were, encounters with Native American tribes, more specifically the Osage, and how and how violent they could be back then. If you're into history, I live in Arkansas, so I'm biased. I just said like five times. I live in Arkansas, so I'm biased, but I don't really know much about Arkansas history. I've lived here for like my whole life, so this was quite a joy to read. Um, if you're into history or like Southern history, I would recommend picking this up. It's a local press actually published it, so extra brownie points for me for supporting indie. That's cool. Number two, best sequel. This doesn't really apply to me, so it's kind of a problem that is created by how widely I try to read, and I also try not to repeat authors back to back. So to answer this question, I'm gonna use a book that is it's in the bibliography of Arkansas Travelers, which is Rude Pursuits and Rugged Peaks, Henry Schoolcraft's Ozark Journal from 1818 to 1819 by Milton D. Rafferty. This book was published, I think, in 1996. This is the journal of one of the explorers in Arkansas Travelers. His name's Henry Schoolcraft. Henry Schoolcraft is probably my favorite traveler out of that book to kind of like eyeball and look up. Second to Thomas Nuttall is second. My second favorite. Henry Schoolcraft, he's my favorite because he's kind of just like the average guy. Three out of the other three explorers in Arkansas Travelers, they were government funded, government aided, and basically had a lot of things in the backstage going on. But Henry was just kind of like, hey, dude, like he asked a friend of his or a colleague of his to go with him, and they just kind of dropped what they were doing and explored Missouri and Arkansas and went from there. And I mean, they weren't very good at what they were doing. I believe Henry was maybe a botanist or a zoologist, and so he kind of knew, but he wasn't a hunter first or anything. So he had trouble killing game. He got lost a bunch of times. His partner sprained his ankle real bad, and they thought that it was going to be way worse, and they thought they were going to get robbed a couple times. So yeah, that's not really a sequel, but the Rude Pursuits book is in the bibliography of the Arkansas Travelers book. Henry Schoolcraft, this is literally just a journal. The dates in there. There's a couple pictures. There's dates on it. It's a pretty cool book. I'm not even done with this. I'm like halfway through, and it's pretty cool. What's interesting to me is just the history of how things have changed. There's a lot of things that they tell about in the journals that, like, when it comes to geography and certain types of plants and animals that aren't here anymore in Arkansas. There used to be buffalo in Arkansas and ocelots here, and neither of those exist around here anymore. Well, there's some buffalo in Oklahoma I know of, but that's not around here. But yeah, it's a really good book. I like it. It fits in. If you can look both these up on the internet and go from there. Number 3, new release you haven't read yet but want to. This is another thing where I'm just like, because I'm out of the loop with new books, to be honest. I'm doing a little bit better now that I have a job where I make okay money for once. I try to, once a month buy a newly published book, whether it's from like Knopf or any of those big publishers or indie. I always prefer indie. I feel like it's less monetary driven. But I'm out of the loop. So I've only bought one book this year that was released in 2025. But I can't really anticipate it because I already bought it. I have seen Stephen King's Never Flinch, and I've thought about buying that, even though I'm not. I'm about to admit a flaw. I've never read Stephen King, but I also am like wishy-washy because it's like the opinions I've heard of Stephen King are so mixed that part of me wants to just pick it up and read it. But then I also hear that his prose is like YA adjacent, and I'm just like, not my cup of tea. Yeah, scary stuff is scary. I like it, but I don't know. I need to just man up and go buy a book of his. There's also Sally Rooney's Intermezzo I've seen and heard decent things about. I don't even know what that's about. There's chess pieces on the cover. So, I mean, I'm sure intermezzo means something. Maybe it's intermission. I don't know. Yeah, those are a couple. I don't want to say I'm anticipating them, but I know of their existence, and I've definitely thought about grabbing them. So number 4 is most anticipated release for the second half of the year. Because I'm out of the loop, I don't really have like an anticipation for anything. At least not new. There's some books I want to read that are published a while ago that I want to read. One of them is A Guardian Angel Recalls. I don't even remember the author. I believe it's Dutch. It's like been translated from Dutch. It's sold on Archipelago Books. The name sounds cool. It sounds like a metal band, Guardian Angel Recalls. That's something I'm looking forward to, not a new release. That's about it for number 4. So number 5 is biggest disappointment. And sometimes I hate questions like this, even though I think that we need to be more honest about what disappointed us and what is not, because I see a lot of booktubers just like it held everything up on a pedestal, and sometimes I'm like, someone's not gonna kill you if you don't like a book and say it on their YouTube channel. So the book I'm about to show is not a bad book. I'm about to probably get crucified, but I don't really care. The book I'm about to hold up is not a bad book by any means, but it's just, compared to what I heard about this book and how lauded this person can be, I just thought it was an okay book. I thought a good author that takes their time, I feel like, could write this book. And that is Ocean Vuong's The Emperor of Gladness. Not a bad book, so I'm going to highlight that. Not a bad book. It's not even really disappointing, but I have to answer with something, I guess. But Ocean Vuong, I think was known for their poetry before they wrote any novels. On Earth We're Briefly Gorgeous, Emperor of Gladness, that's the novels that they've come out with. Like I said, it's not even disappointing, really. I just thought it was an okay book. But I from the circles I'm in, Ocean Vuong kind of gets lauded as like this really cool lit fiction author. But I just thought it was okay. I like some of Ocean Vuong's poetry, and I think I'm just going to stick with poetry. I know I probably sound like an a-hole, but it asked me the question, and so I'm going to answer it. I just thought the book did its job. That's about it. Biggest surprise, number 6. The biggest surprise is honestly probably the Arkansas Travelers book that I put for my answer for number 1. Just because that was the first book I read when I sat down and was like, I don't know much about where I'm from, so I need to do some research. And I picked up that book because it looked like it had been recently published, so maybe sources were new. Maybe the writing was not very dry, like some history can be. Yeah, I mean, I didn't really have expectations, but I remember not wanting to put it down for sure, and I wanted to make sure that I could read like big chunks of it whenever I sat down to read it. So that'll probably be my biggest surprise. Favorite new author, which means debut or new to you. Let me look at my shelves real quick. I read Oakley Hall's Warlock and really enjoyed it. And it made me think about law a lot and is it okay to hold something higher than yourself? I don't know if that made sense. Oakley Hall, I've only read Warlock, but I like the way he writes, and so I'll just throw him in there. Oakley Hall's Warlock is heckin' dope, as the kids might say. I'm reading a book. It's not necessarily, it's Wallace Stegner and the Continental Vision, edited by Kurt Miney, Essays on Literature, History, and Landscapes. Kurt Miney is, I think, one of the only people who did a really comprehensive Aldo Leopold biography. And I've learned to really, really like he does a lot of editing, and I've learned to really like a lot of his edits, if that's how you put it. I know that's not one book. I'm kind of cheating right now. Number 8 is Number 8 is newest fictional crush or worst book. I don't know. Let me look over here. I gotta look at my bookshelves. Hold on. I don't ever read books and think like, wow, that was terrible. Or wow, that's one of the worst books I've read. I'm pretty even keel about things, which is a gift and a curse. I don't get a lot of highs from a lot of books, but I don't get a lot of lows either. Maybe that says something about me that I can't see. But for example, like I don't remember the last time a book just like changed how I think or changed my life. I just read books, and the knowledge itself from the book is like, wow, that's actually useful, and I can have a conversation about this now. But I don't remember a book that was like, oh my gosh, like I'm a better person for reading this, or a worse person. Probably the worst book I read this year, I read a textbook that's about writing fiction, and it's a good book, but I don't know, like it's a book about teaching you things. So it's not really fun to read. I don't know. Number 9 is newest favorite character. I like, what's that dude's name from Warlock? Well, character insinuates it's fictional, but Henry Schoolcraft from the Arkansas Travelers is a cool guy, it seems. I'd probably have a beer with him if he was around. I think it's Ganon from Warlock, the dude that ends up basically realizing that the law needs to exist to keep everybody accountable for things, and how even if the law punishes someone you love, that's just how the law is. I believe that's Ganon. Let me try to figure out this real quick. Yeah, I believe it's Ganon. Clay Blaisdell's a cool guy too. He has golden colts. That's dope. Yeah, so that's probably my favorite. I thought I had a bug on me. That's probably my favorite character. A book that made me cry is number 10. I haven't cried from a book this year. But a book that I would say was a little touching was Ocean Vuong's Emperor of Gladness, just because of the fact that there's a character in this book that is autistic, and just to put it bluntly, he gets treated like shit. And this isn't even that long ago. This book takes place in, I think, 2009. And so you would think people would be more accepting because of modern medicine and things like that. But he just gets treated like shit. And then because he knows, he's aware, because he's aware of it, he's just like, he doesn't have a high self-esteem. And I was like, damn. Like, I didn't cry, but I was like, that fucking sucks. Sorry for my language, but that shit sucks. A book that made me happy is number 11. I really like Elizabeth Bishop's Geography 3. It's a collection of poetry. She lived a pretty private life, and I find a lot of inspiration from her in my own poetry. I write a little bit on the side. There's a poem she wrote called The Moose. And in there, in the verse, there's a part about being on a bus by yourself or with other people, I guess, and hearing just like the conversations that float in the air, and someone's cousin succumbed to drinking or succumbed to a certain vice, and so-and-so's father's dying. And I know I know the prompt has made you happy, but it makes me happy to read her command of language. Poetry is, for the most part, like a good poem can make me pretty happy, because a good poem can help you discover something about yourself or about other subjects. And I think reading is at its best. This is probably a cliche. I think reading is at its best when it's coupled with an author that wants to teach himself something, or he wants to learn something, therefore he's writing it out for himself. I love books that are like historical fiction or even nonfiction books where maybe the introduction is like, hey, this author wrote this book as like a form of research. And I think that's so cool. So anything I've read, like whether it's poetry or historical fiction or nonfiction, where there's like a place or knowledge to join the personal, super dope. Love that. Number 12 is most beautiful book cover or design. I mean, I tend to like more like minimal volumes. I don't have like a favorite right now. Elizabeth Bishop's Geography 3 is pretty cool because it just has like that little brown look and the tools on it. One book I checked out from the library recently that has a little pretty minimal cover, I haven't even read this yet, is Jane Allison's, why isn't this, there's a glare. Jane Allison's Villa E. That glare is terrible. Just like the really cool picture of like a really probably modern looking house with some shrubbery and an ocean and two trees that's framing the ocean. That stuff looks really cool to me. I'm a sucker for landscape photos. So just these flats or whatever this is, I need to look up the details. That's cool. I'm a big fan of any NYRB that has a really dope painting on it, which is like all of them. So Morris Arnold's Colonial Arkansas, I just think the cover is like a map or a drawing, sketch of some sort of camp, I think on the White River or Arkansas River somewhere. I don't remember. I just started this book. A Eudora Welty book. Kind of a creepy little old lady on the front. It almost looks like someone from the movie Perfect Blue, if you've ever seen that. Reminds me of that, oddly. What books, number 13 is what books am I prioritizing to read by the end of the year? Quite a lot. I don't want to say I read fast or a lot, but there's a lot of books I need to get to. I try to keep a read to unread ratio, kind of like, micromanage myself. Let me look at my bookshelf real quick. I'm going to take my mic with me because I don't know how the voice will translate. So there's a Bleach volume I want to read. I'm trying to read a little bit of manga. I want to try to read that. I want to try to finish J. Bailey Hutchinson's Gut by the end of the year. There's a John Grisham book I got given that I might try to read. I don't think I'm going to like it. It's Sycamore Row.
A Midsummer Night's Dream by Shakespeare. I want to read that again. I want to read Edna St. Vincent Millay's collection of poetry that I have. Maybe finish Swan's Way. I might try to finish The Count of Monte Cristo. I wasn't like a huge fan of it. It's not bad, but I definitely was like, this isn't exciting enough for me to stick with it for like 1,200 million pages. I have a collection of plays from Sophocles I want to try to read. There's a Friedrich Nietzsche book I have, but I think philosophy can be important and nice, but sometimes I'm like, I have to be like in a certain mood that I'm only in for 1 second out of the year to read it. People and Collected Stories by a Russian author I'm not going to try to pronounce. I want to try to read The Two Towers and the last volume of The Lord of the Rings. I might try to read Stoner by John Williams again. I'm kind of a weird John Williams fan, and like not from Book Talk. Like he died where I live. Like not exactly where I live, but in the same town. So I've known about John Williams for a while now. But I might try to read his books again. I have Franz Kafka's The Trial I'm going to try to read. Right now I'm trying to finish The Control of Nature by John McPhee. The book I'm reading right now is The Control of Nature by John McPhee. I took off the dust jacket. My hairline is whack. I took off the dust jacket because I'm kind of one of those weirdos who doesn't really like them. But yeah, that's about it. Sorry if there's not any like mainstream books. I'm behind the loop with new books, and I also just read random crap. So yeah, thank you for sticking around if you did.